Hi chess fans, in this video we will look at the game played between Michael Adams with white and Veselin Topalov with black in the 2016 London Chess Classics of round 5 today. Michael Adams played e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Spanish game, Ruy Lopez, and now knight f6, Berlin variation, and d3, the anti-Berlin variation. And now the two main moves are d6 or bishop to c5. Topalov chooses bishop c5. And now white plays bishop takes c6. Now the main variation here is c3, castles, d6, knight bd2, a6, bishop a4, bishop a7, h3, knight e7, rook e1, and stuff like this. Okay, and the game continues, and this is like a typical Ruy Lopez position. But instead, Michael Adams played bishop takes c6 here. And little opening theory question number one. What is the idea behind this move, and how is this move different from the main line of the exchange variation? Pause your video and think about this question, and then continue the video once you have found an answer. Okay, so the idea behind this move is that if black takes, now white can exchange pieces and push the d pawn and exchange it, and then have a pawn majority here, 4 against 3, and capitalize on this potentially in the endgame. Okay, and how is this move different from the main variation of the exchange variation? So first we have the bishop here on c5, and that is actually blocking in some lines to push the c-pawn. So the c-pawn, for example, after these pieces get exchanged and the knight retakes, the c-pawn cannot immediately, maybe not always immediately, push forward. The bishop at least has to move before. Okay, and the other thing is that after, let's have a look here, white plays knight bd2. Now if black plays bishop g4, which is another plan in the exchange variation, one idea is that after h3, black can play h5. And in this position this doesn't work so well, because if takes, the bishop has moved away, so this rook actually takes with check. And that is the difference here in this position. So to illustrate, if after a6, now we enter the exchange variation, there's two main plans here for black. The one plan is bishop g4, and here black can play h5, and the game continues like this, because if here takes, then black can take and opens the line here for the rook, and this rook after castle, this rook has an attack on the king. And the other plan is f6, and after d4, e takes, knight takes, now the pawn can push forward here, and the bishop is here in the back. Okay, so little opening question as to what is different in this bishop takes c6 as compared to the exchange variation. Okay, the game continued. D takes, knight bd2, bishop e6, castles, bishop moves back, d4, and this was the white plan all along, to push d4. Now that the bishop retreated, white can play d4 right away. And if the bishop had not retreated, white also has the plan to prepare d4 with knight to b3. Okay, but after bishop d6, Mickey Adams can play right away d4. Knight drops back to protect the pawn. After knight takes, d takes, bishop takes, and after these pieces have been exchanged like this, white has the pawn majority, but black also has the bishop pair in a good open position where these bishops have a lot of squares to go to. Okay, after f4, the bishops, however, can be pushed. Check, king h1, f6, c3, bishop drops back to b6, is happy to be on this diagonal. And now Mickey Adams played an interesting move, f5. So normally we don't want to allow weaknesses in our pawn structure. And question number 2, why can white play the unnatural looking move f5? Pause your video and try to find the answer. Okay, the reason is quite simple, and we can see it in how the game continued. After the bishop moves away, white can follow up right away with e5. So that was the reason why f5 was possible. So sometimes in a position like this, we might want to play the natural looking move e5, but if we can play e5 anyways, it might make sense to play a move like f5 before. And e5 also makes a lot of sense because the king has not yet castles, and we want to castle and we want to push the pawn forward to create a passed pawn, but also more importantly open up the position for a potential attack against the king. Okay, f takes, queen g4. Okay, so now white wants to capitalize on this advantage and attack. So question number 3. Topalov played queen d3 in this position, but if Topalov had played castle here, white is attacking the pawn here. If black would castle, question number 3, what would be the best way for white to arrange his pieces for an attack? Okay, in this position here, a good plan to attack would be to play knight to e4, where it can have many interesting routes towards the king. And then after this, bishop to g5. If the queen stays here, we even develop this bishop tempo. And from this square here, the bishop can also become active against the king. Okay. So maybe that's why Topalov played queen d3. But Mickey now can grab a pawn. And after rook g8, queen takes e5. White has 5 pawns. White has 6 pawns and this passer here, as compared to 5 pawns. But what is the problem in white's position? Well, this knight is blocking this bishop, and this bishop is blocking the rook. So white is a pawn up and has a passed pawn and an active queen, and the king is still in the center. But the compensation that black has is that white's pieces are caged in, and black himself can now mount an attack here. But also, of course, has the king in the middle. Okay, so given this situation, after king to d7, what should white do in this position to solve his problems and to capitalize on his strengths? Question number 4, pause your video. What is the best move for white? Okay, the best move for white here is queen to e4. And the idea is to exchange pieces. And if the black queen now takes, we are exchanging the queens. We still have our position advantage of this passed pawn here and the extra pawn, obviously. And we are exchanging the pieces even in a way that the knight frees up the bishop. And alternatively, the black queen, if black says no, I don't want to exchange the pieces, and the black queen doesn't have so many squares to go to. On all of these squares, it can be exchanged or even lost. Same here. So what squares does the queen really have? If the queen goes to d6, we can activate the knight a tempo. So that helps white solve his problems. And otherwise, black really has those squares. And in light of this situation, Topalov played queen a6, maintaining the queen, keeping the queen on this diagonal, but also somehow moving the queen to a strange place. So this also underlines that the strength of the move queen to e4, because really if black doesn't want to exchange queens, is forced to retrieve the queen to the funny looking square a6, where the queen is at the side of the board. Okay. Now question number 5, next question. After white has chased the queen away a little bit like this, what resources does white have and what is the best move to exploit them? Pause your video for question number 5. Okay, we talked about it a little bit before. Those pieces here are not so good. They're caged in. But the resources that white does have is this really exposed king here, and this active queen, and this passed pawn that white would love to push forward at some point in the ending. Okay, so and how to exploit this? Well, the move that Mickey played and that exploits all these resources is the move f6. The reason is that the queen plans to give a check here on f5, and by doing this also taking away the escape square of the king. So black would love to play the rook. Black would love to play, black would love to play the rook over here and move and tuck the king away behind it. And with this plan, white is making sure the black king stays in the center. Okay, black does move the rook over to the center, and white plays queen to f5. And sorry, I'm trying to do the arrows here. It doesn't seem to be working. And excuse me. And in this position here, white is taking away the escape square c8 from the black king, and the king has to stay in the center on d8. Okay, now Mickey played a very good move. The move is c4. And question number 6. What strategical goal does this move achieve? And why can black not simply take here with the bishop on c4? Pause your video for question number 6. Okay, so the strategical goal of this move is obviously that the queen is on a bad square here, and we are blocking the king off the queen off this diagonal. So this rook can move, and so the knight can move because it's not bound to the defense of the rook necessarily anymore. The rook at the moment is also defended by the queen, but it's good to block the queen off this diagonal. And it's also positionally well because it allows for plans of developing the bishop on this diagonal. So white is happy to play this move. It would be nice strategically and positionally, but why can black not simply take here? Well, white has the tactical resource that after knight takes and queen takes, rook d1 is mate or losing the queen, because white is controlling all these squares around the king. So black has to sacrifice the queen here. So it's a good example of how we can achieve a strategic goal by tactical means. Okay, so let's move on. After this move, Topalov played queen a4, trying to get the queen out of this position from the side of the board. And now in this position, I'm thinking a little bit what would be the best move for white here. White played queen to h3. Obviously, the purpose behind queen a5 was now that it's white suddenly who's attacking and has the more active piece to exchange the queens. So white wants to move the queen away. And Mickey moves the queen to h3. So why does the queen not, for example, move here and give a check? Question number 7 of this video. Why did white not play queen d3, but why did white play instead queen h3? Okay, the answer is again that queen h3 keeps the queen on this diagonal and also maybe attacks the pawn here. And the whole point is that the king stays in the center. So in this position here, one big resource that white has is that the king is still exposed. As soon as white untangles his pieces here, this king can be attacked. We have seen it already with a c4. It's a tactical liability, and white wants to keep this, wants to maintain this tactical liability. That's why white plays queen h3. I find it very interesting because I totally would have played queen d3 here on first sight in a blitz game. Okay, so queen h3, queen b4, black sneaks the queen in and tries to activate. The plan is to activate the queen like this. And Mickey grabs the pawn, queen f8, b3. Finally, the pressure is off the d2 knight, and white plans to develop his bishop. Bishop d4, and now queen d3. Nice resource, pinning the bishop, even though the bishop is attacking the rook. Some more things are not going so well for black. The queen moves back again. And now, because of this position of the queen, we can develop the knight with tempo. Developing the knight and at the same time attacking the queen. Queen d7, rook d1, renewing the threat or the pin of the bishop, because now still if the bishop moves, even though the queen is now protected by the king, we would mate. So black has again to move, to invest time to move the king over. And now, can white take the bishop here? Is white winning a piece? Question number 8. What move did black have in mind that led him to give up the piece on d4? Pause your video and try to find the move that Topalov had in mind. Okay, the move that Topalov had in mind was queen g4 with a double threat of mating here on g2 and at the same time attacking the knight with the queen and the rook. So threatening mate and winning the knight. So as a consequence, white cannot cover both of these threats and has to give up the piece. Okay, but question number 9. What resource does white have now? What tactical blow does white have that helps him win the game? Pause your video for the last question in this video. How How did Mickey Adams win this game? Okay, so um, there is three motives here. So the move is um, bishop to g5. So that's the move. And the motive is that um, this bishop is breaking the coordination between the rook and the queen and taking the threat of the mate out of the position. Okay, but now black cannot make mate anymore. White has met the threat, but can the rook now simply take the knight or the queen take the knight? And here comes the other resource. If queen takes, white has the amazing resource queen takes a7, threatening mate. And actually we can look at the game. I think that Topalov actually took with the rook, and it happened. Queen takes a7, and now after bishop d5, queen a8, king d7, rook takes, and the queen is ready to take the rook on g8 and protect the bishop at the same time. White is material up and wins. So the resource in this position was breaking the coordination of the rook and the queen, having this mate threat here, and to be honest, also posing a trap. That's a tactical motive as well. Bishop g5 is a kind of creative looking move. It's only possible because the bishop coordinates here with the knight. Black gave up a piece and wanted already to win back the piece in this way, and so it's a trap and actually also the best move in this position, to be honest, to take out this knight, and then black is losing the game. Okay, hope you learned a lot. I always find it very amazing if Mickey Adams plays in such a strong tournament. He's a very strong grandmaster himself, but he's playing in this super strong tournament, and he's playing always very well in the London Chess Classics, and he was winning against Veselin Topalov now in this great game. Thanks a lot for watching.